Hey y'all, good morning. Welcome to Criminalist Behavior Podcast, the podcast that takes you deep into the heart of Louisiana's history and current, most chilling true crime stories. I'll be guiding you through the darkness of these crimes and all those involved. Each week, we dig deep on those forgotten crimes or those crimes currently happening with the underlying legends that continue to haunt us. So lean in, listen, and get ready because true crime is anything but ordinary. Stay with me as we unravel what happens in these mysteries. So today we're going to be on episode number 32, which is a local woman attacked in a local laundromat. If this is your first time listening, hi, my name is Sarah Soudier, and I'm your host for Criminalist Behavior Podcast. I want to thank you for listening to the show, and I really hope you enjoy it. So, trigger warning, this episode may contain content of a graphic nature, including descriptions of physical and sexual violence against adults, children, and animals. Listener discretion is advised. So, I'm going to just jump right on in. And I hope you had a great weekend, and I'm just glad to be back. I did suffer messed up ankle and a shoulder last week, and that's why I was not able to record an episode, but I'm doing better. But yeah, just to keep you up to date on my little life. You know, my life is always exciting, but nonetheless, let's get to why you're here. The St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office received a call from a woman who said she had stabbed a man who attacked her while she was at a laundromat on March 3rd, 2024. So, y'all, that happened this year. An investigation found that Nicholas Tranchant had arrived on the laundromat with a sharp object intending to sexually assault the woman, and the woman's name was Bre Morgan. A fight ensued, and the woman was able to grab the object, fatally stabbing the suspect, Nicholas Tranchant. She stated, "He had sat his knife down, and that's when I picked it up and used it against him." Deputies claimed that Tranchant attacked a woman at the laundromat in the community of Lacombe, Louisiana, which is a community it's like north of Lake Pontchartrain in around the New Orleans area. Authorities said they first got a call about an unresponsive man with an apparent stab wound. But while on the way there, that's whenever dispatch received that call from the woman claiming she had stabbed a man who had attacked her at the laundromat. Dozens of court records obtained details about the criminal past of, the sexual offender Nicholas Tranchant. Nicholas was 40 years old, and he was stabbed on March 3rd, 2024. And he was attempting to sexually assault Bre. He died while he was receiving emergency care at the hospital. It has been reported that Nicholas lived less than a mile away from the laundromat, and according to his registered address, he actually met with his parole officer 11 times. The Louisiana Department of Public Safety and Corrections said he had been following the conditions of his release up until this point. The laundromat is actually a walkable distance for Nicholas where he was living, and it would actually just be a 10-minute walk. And that's according to any route around the area. Local resident Gwen Batiste explained that she had intended to be at the same laundromat around the time of the incident, but she actually got held up. She stated, open quotations, "I got tied up and I didn't get there. When I came through, I seen all the police and everything started hearing things." She said she went to Mandeville. She felt safer driving in the middle of the night to Mandeville than going right there, which was a half a mile away from her home. Gwen Batiste was actually planning to wash her granddaughter's school uniforms at that laundromat in which Bre was attacked. And she also stated, open quotations, "It makes me want to tear up that she had to go through that, and it's a shame. I pay taxes here. I shouldn't have to worry about my granddaughter walking to the bus stop. She expressed her concern for her granddaughter's safety walking to school. And she also stated, I understand everybody's done their time. But when you hurt a woman, you hurt a child. There's no, you've done your time and it's over with. And she also stated, it's pretty sad. We need to bond together and get rid of these pedophiles and sex offenders. It's become normal around here, and that is something that should not be normal. And I agree with Ms. Gwen. I really, really agree with Ms. Gwen. I don't think it's normal to have sexual offenders out and proud. Like, damn. Like, I hate to say it, but once a sex offender, always a sex offender. I mean, unless you've done it in a different state of mind, like, I just can't see you being reformed, because you're always gonna have that itch. I can't. So the victim was 27-year-old Bre Morgan, and she said that March 3rd quickly turned into the fight of her life whenever she was at the local laundromat. And her exact words, she stated, open quotations, "I'm glad I came out on top. It was just by the grace of God." And there is an interview with the victim, and I mean, I admire her for fighting for her life, because, y'all, I can't even imagine being at a local laundromat and somebody coming up trying to attack me. Like, I would be fighting for my life just like Bre. On Sunday, March 3rd, Bre was attacked, and she was just doing laundry for her and her children when she was attacked by Nicholas, and he was actually wielding a knife. The man dragged her to the bathroom in the local laundromat and attempted to sexually assault her, and by the grace of God, she was able to fight back and free herself from the attack. The perpetrator, Nicholas, died after receiving emergency care at the hospital because Bre was able to stab him during the struggle, so she immediately was rushed to the hospital as well, because in the event of fighting for the knife from Nicholas, Bre was also stabbed. So she was stabbed, and then she stabbed Nicholas, trying to just live. Bre is actually a dedicated mental health technician who hopes to attend nursing school someday. And she actually was forced to put her career on hold. And if you have the means, please consider donating to help support Bre, because this is actually a difficult time for her. She had to miss work and everything because she was stabbed, and obviously she was probably insecure about everything and just post-traumatic stress disorder after this incident. Every dollar counts, and it would go to her, ensuring that she can get back on her feet, continue to provide for herself and her family, as money would be used for her medical bills as well as other important expenses. So the incident, exactly, I mean, I said that he drug her to the bathroom to sexually assault her, but this is exactly how it went down. So Bre was returning to move over her clothes from the washer to the dryer. That's whenever she was approached by the 40-year-old Nicholas Tranchant, which is actually a convicted sexual offender who was charged years ago for indecency with a child, as well as attempted aggravated rape and burglary. So he already had 2 counts against him, and this dude was still loose. Morgan says he pretended to help her at the change machine before uttering bone-chilling words attacking her. And y'all, this is what Nicholas Tranchant told Bre. Open quotations. He said, "Give up and you won't die." And Morgan stated, "I was hanging on the wall at one point and my shirt and jacket came off. I was just trying everything to get away." Bre also stated that Tranchant drug her to the bathroom at that time, blindly throwing punches as a struggle ensued. And Brecken is actually a mother of two, and she said that's when Nicholas pulled out the knife while grabbing her by her hair. And at one point, she stated that Nicholas actually dropped the knife, but that wasn't before he was actually able to stab her. She says she immediately picked up the knife and managed to stab him twice during the fight, and then she ran to get help. She believes her quick thinking is what saved her life. And St. Tammany Parish Council leaders are working to impose stricter legislation for sex offenders who live in the area. Council members will vote on legislature in later this year, 2024, regarding safer perimeters to protect the community from sex offenders. Now, like I said, Nicholas Tranchant had a history, a violent history. Why was this man out? Why was he aggravated rape and burglary? And that was after he had the indecency behavior with a juvenile. He's showing a pattern, y'all. And y'all let this man back out on the street for him to attack Brecken and whoever else he may have attacked after the fact. Y'all, like, if Brecken wasn't able to get away, she would have just been another victim on the statistics. And I'm not okay with that because, damn, I'm glad she was able to free herself. And this man shouldn't have been out. He should not have been out. We failed Brecken. So, Bre Morgan stated, I just can't wait to see the positive that's going to bring because Lacombe is her home. And I'm going to link the fundraiser and stuff for Brecken. And at this current time, out of a $10,000 goal, she's actually reached at $7,766. So she only has a little bit more to go. And y'all, I kid you not, as God would have it, the crime scene in which this took place at the laundromat with Brecken and Nicholas, that following week, it literally caught fire. And there was a Fox 8 drone that was able to capture the video of the aftermath of that laundromat burning down. State Fire Marshal deputies believe that the fire was actually accidental. While the exact cause of the fire remains unknown, it is believed to be related to a dryer that was in use when the fire was actually discovered. St. Tammany fire officials report that they were able to contain the fire shortly after midnight on March 12th, 2024. And Morgan told the news outlets that the laundromat was a place she never wanted to return to. So the fact that it actually burnt down, I'm sure gave her some sense of closure. There were no injuries reported in that fire. And the St. Tammany Parish Councilman Joe Impastato stated the situation with the victim, the way it happened, it almost seemed like God interceded to help bring attention to this problem in our community. And he also stated, I don't think it's ever good for someone to lose a business. We know it's a viable business needed in our community, so we will rebuild it and get this worked out and move on in a positive direction. So at least Brecken wouldn't have to look at the same building that she was attacked in, because I'm sure that haunts her ass. Like, I am sure, yes, she was fighting for her life, but at some point you still killed a man. Like, I'm sure she still has some type of feeling towards that, because nobody's normal. Nobody wants to go out and kill somebody even though they're getting attacked. But as a means to survive, you're gonna do what you have to do. And I applaud her because I would do the same. So, Nicholas' criminal past reveals a history of sexual abuse. Those records say that in July 2003, Nicholas, at just 19 years old, committed a lewd and lascivious act about a known juvenile by fondling Y'all, this is where it's going to get graphic. So before I keep going, I want you to know it's going to get graphic. So in July 2003, Nicholas was in the presence of a juvenile, and he started fondling the victim's vagina and exposing his penis to the victim with the intent of trying to arouse and gratify sexual desires. Although the name of the victim was not disclosed, she was only 8 years old. Nicholas Tranchett, 19 years old, trying to play with this girl's vagina and exposing his penis. Bruh, I would beat the brakes off this dude. I swear on everything, Lord, God strike me dead. This man should have been put under the damn jail at the sight of a fucking 8-year-old, y'all. An 8-year-old. Oh, that drives me. Oh my God, that drives me. Nicholas was arrested in Kenner about a month after he attacked this girl before bonding out for $2,500. So this man was able to bond out after showing his penis and fondling this 8-year-old's vagina. $2,500. What the fuck kind of bond is that? Damn sexual predator. Like, you got to be kidding me. He initially pleaded not guilty, but later he actually entered a guilty plea to one count of indecent behavior with a juvenile. That just makes me sick. I just want to beat the brakes off this dude. Judge Robert Petrie Jr. imposed a 2-year suspended sentence and a 2 years of probation July 25th, 2003. And with 4 months left of his probation, Nicholas did something. And look, this just got me trampled in my words because it pisses me off. Like, that poor child. So with 4 months left of his probation, the Jefferson Parish District Attorney's Office asked the judge to impose sexual offender registration requirements for Nicholas Tranchett, but that motion was denied. Who in their right mind would deny this man to have to be registered for a sexual offender? Like, this man exposed his penis to a fucking 8-year-old child. He was fondling her fucking vagina. But you don't want to impose him to fucking register as a goddamn sexual offender? Oh, what is wrong with this person? So he was denied having to register as a sexual offender at this time, and he was actually released from the state's site. 10 months later, Nicholas Tranchett offended again. That charge was the attempted aggravated rape and aggravated burglary. Jefferson Parish deputies were called to an apartment in Metairie on June 20th, 2006. 3 years later, y'all. 3 years later. Nicholas Tranchett was 23 years old, and he entered in an uninvited apartment, and he grabbed a woman by the arm and demanded she took off her underwear. Nicholas tried to force the woman into the apartment's bathroom when she started screaming for her 7-year-old son upstairs to call the police. Nicholas cut the victim with a razor on the left side of her neck, leaving a 5-inch wound that required multiple stitches to close. Nicholas Tranchett was arrested that very same day. On July 26, 2006, the Jefferson Parish District Attorney filed a bill of information charging defendant Nicholas V. Tranchett with attempted aggravated rape upon an adult female in violation of the law and aggravated burglary as well. And at the July 27, 2006 arraignment, Nicholas pled not guilty. Oh my God, this man's a fucking coward. On September 28, 2006, the defendant filed a motion for a mental examination, alleging a history of mental illness and seeking a mental evaluation to determine his sanity at the time of the commission of the offense. On October 4th, 2006, the trial court granted the defendant's request for the appointment of a sanity commission and set the matter for a competency hearing. So, pursuant to the court's order, Dr. Raphael Salcido, which is a forensic psychologist, and Dr. Richard Richoux, a forensic psychiatrist, examined Nicholas. And on October 11, 2006, they actually issued a written report where they concluded that Nicholas was actually competent to proceed to trial. With regard to the defendant's mental state at the time of the alleged offense, Dr. Salcido and Dr. Richoux advised the court that they had insufficient data upon which to render an opinion and requested additional information and documentation regarding the defendant's history on the alleged offenses. So, your sanity plea out the damn window, bruh. Like, you've been doing this since you fucking 19. And that's what was reported. It could have happened prior to him being the age of 19. Because there ain't no chance in freaking hell you just immediately expose your penis to an 8-year-old and then fondle her fucking vagina. Like, hell no, you can't convince that to me. You really cannot. And at the competency hearing on October 25th, 2006, the parties stipulated that Dr. Salcido and Dr. Richoux would testify in accordance with their October 11, 2006 report. Based on his review of the report, the trial judge found the defendant competent to stand trial. Following this determination, Nicholas actually withdrew his plea of not guilty and entered a plea of not guilty and not guilty by reason of insanity. So, no, baby, you're not guilty by reason of insanity. The psychiatrist stated that you're not insane. You are competent to stand trial. So what the fuck are you doing, bro? On November 3rd of 2006, Nicholas sought a notion of insanity defense pursuant to the law. And on November 6th, a newly retained counsel filed a motion for appointment of a sanity commission to make an examination as to the defendant's mental condition at the time of the offense and at the present time. And on November 9th, 2006, 6 days later, that trial judge granted that actual motion. So, in case you just missed it, they was trying to state what the mental condition was for Nicholas at the time the offense was made. Now, this was only on the 2006. They didn't even consider his prior conviction, because he got a slap on the damn wrist for that. He didn't have to register as a sexual offender, so slap on the wrist, shoo underneath the rug. But this MFer wants to go ahead and say he's fucking insane, and they granted this damn motion. Like, what? After a psychiatrist proved that he was actually competent enough to stand the damn trial. What is going on, y'all? What the hell is going on? On February 14, 2007, pursuant to the court appointment and after reviewing additional information provided by the defense counsel, Dr. Salcido and Dr. Richoux issued that report regarding their follow-up examination of the defendant. In this report, the doctors recommended to the court that the defendant was actually legally sane. Say it with me, y'all. Legally sane at the time at which he offended. On March 21st, 2007, the court actually vacated its previous order, which granted the Sanity Commission and the authority to make a determination as to the defendant's competency at the time of his offense. On May 15, 2008, Nicholas Tranchant withdrew his not guilty plea and, after being advised of his constitutional rights, pleaded guilty as charged. You have no damn choice. You was backed in a corner. You tried this damn insanity plea, and you wasn't getting it, boo. In accordance with the plea agreement, the trial judge sentenced the defendant to 20 years in prison at hard labor on each count to run concurrently. So if you remember, he was charged with aggravated rape and burglary. So 20 years at hard labor on each count. That's 40 years, y'all. 40 years. Because it was to run concurrent, without the benefit of parole, probation, or suspension of a sentence. 40 years without. So, this happened 2008, y'all. 2008. This is whenever he was sentenced to 40 years. On February 5th, 2009, Nicholas filed a motion for post-conviction relief. And the motion was to reconsider the sentence and to withdraw the guilty plea. On February 18, 2009, the trial court denied those motions. And in denying the defendant's motion to withdraw the guilty plea, the trial court found that he was not entitled to the relief sought because his plea was not constitutionally infirm. And in case you're trying to figure out what the hell does constitutionally infirm means, in a legal sense, the term infirmity is used to mean that it is anyway an imperfection, and it renders a particular transaction that is like not complete. In a way that relates to this or is caused by your general health or character, meaning that his plea was weak. Okay, so it's just another way to say that his guilty plea in which he did was now considered to be a weak guilty plea. So after several assessments by multiple doctors, Nicholas Tranchant was diagnosed with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, bipolar disorder, and found to have a full-scale IQ of 61. So clinically, Doctor, Lord Jesus, I'm giving him more praise than it's worth, because he is just scum. So Nicholas came across as somewhat off and peculiar, and with a restricted range of effect. He tended to respond to in like a monotone way, and he rarely showed any affection at all. His thought processes were generally coherent and logical, but he was somewhat just brief in all his responses. The court found Nicholas Tranchant competent to stand at trial, and nearly 2 years after his arrest on May 15, 2008, that's whenever he pled guilty to the attempted aggravated rape and aggravated burglary, and was sentenced 20 years on each count, so the 40 years, because that was to run concurrent. Over the next few years, Nicholas actually attempted to revoke his guilty plea, claiming he was not adequately informed of the decision he was actually making. So on April 21st, 2009, the defendant filed another application for post-conviction relief, questioning an out-of-time appeal. On May 4th, 2009, the district court granted the defendant's request for an out-of-time appeal. It is the posture that the case is going to go before the court again. So, the validity of this guilty plea, y'all. In his first assigned errors that he wanted to base this appeal on, he challenges the validity of his guilty plea. He stated that the plea was not freely and voluntarily given because the trial court improperly allowed him to plead guilty without withdrawing his plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. And in addition to that, Nicholas also stated that the trial court failed to advise him of his right to pursue the defense of insanity before accepting his guilty plea. And according to Nicholas, his plea is constitutionally deficient. I don't know what the hell I was about to say. His plea was constitutionally deficient and it should be vacated. And in response to that, the state stated that the defendant's plea was freely and voluntarily made, and points out that the trial judge actually fully informed the defendant of his constitutional rights and made a determination that the defendant was actually competent enough to enter that plea agreement. And it was stated that if Nicholas pled guilty, he waived all his non-jurisdictional defects and proceedings leading up to the guilty plea. And in review of that, such defects either by appeal or post-conviction relief. And they stated that they reviewed the record in the instant, and they found that there was no evidence to indicate that the defendant's guilty plea was constitutionally infirm in any other way. So meaning weak, right? On May 15, 2008, the defendant informed the court that he wished to withdraw his former plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty as charged. The record indicated that prior to that actual hearing, the defense counsel completed an acknowledgement and waiver of constitutional rights form with Nicholas. The form, which was signed by the trial judge, Nicholas, and the defense counsel, specifically informed the defendant of his right to trial by jury, his right to confront his accusers, and his right to remain silent. In the waiver of the rights form, he initialized next to each one of those rights, and he signed that form. So he knew what the hell was happening. He understood that he was waiving those rights, and he pleaded guilty. In addition to the execution of that form, the trial judge addressed the defendant in open court. The trial judge also advised Nicholas of the nature of the charges to which he was pleading, and further advised him of his right to a jury trial, and also his right to confrontation and his privilege against self-incrimination. During that, the defendant indicated that he understood those rights, and he pleaded guilty, and he waived those rights. Nicholas was further advised during the trial court and the waiver of rights form of the possible sentences that he could receive, and actual sentences which would be imposed had he choose to enter a guilty plea. And both the verbal mouth of the judge and the waiver of the rights form, Nicholas indicated that he understood the sentencing range and also understood he would be sentenced to 20 years at hard labor on each count to run concurrently. He was also advised that the state had agreed not to file a multiple offender bill of information. He was further advised that he would be found to be a sexual offender, and he would be required to comply with certain additional requirements and regulations according to the sexual offenders, which he acknowledged as receiving and understanding. So he knew he had to register as a sexual offender upon making this guilty plea. And he also indicated that he was satisfied with the representation of his attorney, and he stated that he had not been forced, coerced, or threatened to enter this guilty plea. So Judge Lee Faulkner Jr. denied those attempts and charged him to remain in custody. But he did not serve those 40 years. He didn't even serve half of those. He was released early due to Act 1099 of 1995. What that act was? It required convicted offenders to serve at least 85% of their sentence before being released into parole supervision. The Louisiana Department of Corrections says that Nicholas gained 175 days in custody for disciplinary reasons. So he was acting the fool up in the prison, y'all. And he lost 825 days off his sentence as credit for time served pre-trial and for classes he actually took while imprisoned. So this actually made him to be released August 4, 2003. Do the math, y'all. 2008, 2023. How much is that? What this? Okay, let's go with want to be 20 years. All right, let's go with want to be 20 years. He was actually able to be released on August 4, 2023, as long as he had an appropriate housing plan in place. He registered for a sexual offender, and he actually stuck to his parole. He was known as a Tier 3 sexual offender, and at that time, he was required to register as a sexual offender for the rest of his life. He was not allowed to hold a job directly involving children or to be within a certain distance of schools, parks, and other areas where children are typically present. He was released from jail on those charges on December 21st, 2023. December 21st, 2023, y'all. So, how long did it take him to reoffend? 3 months! Oh my God. 3 months. Alright. So the doctrine says from the time of his release to the time of his death, Nicholas met with his parole officer 11 times within those 3 months. And he hadn't previously violated any conditions of his parole. So the post-conviction housing that Nicholas was in He moved into a home off of Highway 424 in Lacombe, which was owned by Abraham Williams. And Williams was actually interviewed about Nicholas as a tenant. Williams stated that he inspired to provide rooms to formerly convicted offenders because he was accused of a sexual offense in the past and maintained that he was actually innocent from that crime. Williams says he never was convicted and the allegations against him were dropped. So Williams just had a soft spot because he believed that people needed another chance, or they possibly might have been falsely accused of a sexual offense. Nicholas was proved to be guilty though, so like this shit just crazy. So Abraham Williams said that he moved 2 other registered sex offenders into the home, saying he didn't like that Nicholas Trenchard was alone. And he stated that Nicholas had access to a bike, but that his family actually took that bike away. Abraham Williams was the owner of 4 of at least 12 properties that St. Tammany Councilman Joe Impastato calls sex offender compounds. Impastato says they are properties where at least 15% of the residents are registered sex offenders. And Joe Impastato stated this: "I want to compliment this brave woman on the courage and strength she showed in fighting back against her attacker and ask prayers for her continued recovery." Y'all, what do y'all think of this case? This man, I mean, he deserved his life in prison. Like, he really did. Life in prison, y'all. This man should not have been out on these damn streets. I will stay firm with that. Oh my God. This is the conclusion of this episode, y'all. But y'all please do write in, comment, share, like, review us. But, like, let me know what you think about this case. How you feel that... Do you think that he actually offended before the age of 19? How do you feel in regards to him with this 8-year-old and then being with this aggravated burglary and rape? So if you enjoyed our show, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, anywhere you actually listen to your podcasts. And be sure to come back for another episode on Thursday. And until then, this is your host, Sarah Soudier. Oh, wait, before I do that, make sure, like, you go through the show notes and look at the victim's fundraiser. Also, don't forget, the podcast was offered an award with the Women's Podcasting. I also will have that link in the show notes. And you can also visit our website and become a Patreon, if you will. We have all this good information. If you want to be a guest speaker on the show, anything, case suggestions, all that good stuff. So, again, until then, this is your host, Sarah Soudier. And don't forget to like, share, follow, or subscribe to Criminalist Behavior, a Louisiana true crime podcast. Thank y'all for joining, and y'all have a great day.